Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel and welcome to this reading vlog. If you caught this video, then you already know what you're in for with this. I am attempting to black out the R Fantasy bingo board for 2024. I have 4 spots left to fill. If you missed this video, I filled the 3. I started with 7. I started with 7 spots. I've already done 3 of them and I have 4 left. There, right? Yeah, right. So in this vlog, and I did talk about my TBR in the check-in video, so these aren't like a total surprise if you saw that, but I did change 1 book in between that video and right now. I think it's really good that I've only changed 1 book, to be honest. It could have changed all of them. Anyways, for this video, I am going to be reading The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez to fulfill the dream prompt, and I will be reading Ardent Violet and the Infinite Eye by Alex White to fulfill the space opera prompt. This is book 2 in the Star Metal Symphony series. Also, shout out to Orbit for not only putting the series on the spine, but also what book this is in the series. Can everybody else fall in line on that, please? And then I will be reading The Outside by Ada Hoffman for the character with a disability prompt. The main character in this one, Yasira, is autistic, and the one that I changed is for the reading a book published in the 1990s or 1900s? I think it was 1990s. For reading a book set in the 90s, I am going to be reading instead Enchanted by Gail, Carson, Levine. So there's always a read an old school book prompt for the R Fantasy bingo board. At least there has been for the past 3. We're coming up on my 3rd year of doing this. And I struggle with that one so much because I genuinely don't enjoy older books. And the ones that I have enjoyed, like I've read already, and I read them in the moment, you know, as they were coming out. And so sometimes it's a struggle for me to find something that I want to read that is older, but I had forgotten that in the rules for the bingo board, it says that you can use a reread in 1 square. And I haven't reread anything that I have on the bingo board thus far. So I have space to reread something, and I'm so excited because this is my copy from my childhood, which is like actually in pretty good shape considering I've probably had this since like 97 or 98, and it was probably published in 1997. So I'm really excited to reread this because I haven't reread it in a very, very, very long time. So that is our little TBR for this video, and I'm really excited. I've had some of these books on my TBR for a very long time, like The Outside and The Spear Cuts Through Water, and then Ardent Violet was like one of my most anticipated books that was being published last year, and I just haven't gotten to it, and a reread of a beloved childhood favorite. So I feel like this is going to be a really good time for me. So I hope you stick around and see how it goes and my thoughts on all these books, and I'll come back when I have started something and have an update for you. Alright, do not ask me why I picked the most intimidating book to start this project with. I've been reading The Spear Cuts Through Water for forever, but I am finally just over 50% of the way through, so I can finally tell you about it, or about my initial thoughts so far, because honestly I don't know if I can talk intelligently about this book because I'm not even sure I really know what is going on. I have read The Vanished Birds. Did I talk about this in this video, or is it a different video where I mentioned it? Which is science fiction and was Simon Jimenez's debut, and I loved it. It was so good. I loved the characters, I love the writing, I love the world building. It was so good. This is so different, which I think is really cool. I love seeing when authors can kind of be chameleons in their writing styles and in their concepts. So like, I really just love how different this is, but boy howdy am I confused. So we have kind of 2 things going on. We have this boy, maybe he's a teenager. I don't think he's a fully like grown person. And he lives at home with his brothers, and their mother is gone, their dad is away at work all the time, and so their grandma, their Lola, primarily raises them. And the boy that we're following, he and his Lola are really close, and she tells him stories. So at the beginning of this, she is starting to tell him a story. And then we also have this theatrical component that hasn't shown up for a while, but at the beginning, it's their actors on stage, and it's never really clear if this is a theatrical production that is mimicking the book, or if it's what the boy is imagining as his Lola tells him these stories. Like, I could never quite figure out which one it is, or if it's like a fever dream moment. I don't know. And then we have the core story, which takes place in this kingdom, the Moon Kingdom, that is ruled by a really cruel emperor and his family. And the emperor has only sons. The mother is gone, so it's mirroring the family component of the boy. And it's just like truly the cruelest people are in this royal family. And at the beginning, the emperor is murdered, and we're following one of his sons as he journeys throughout the kingdom. And then we're also following, and his name is June, and then we're also following a young man named Kima, who is kind of an outcast. He's separated from his people. He has existed in this kingdom by working the jobs that nobody else wants to have. He's missing part of his arm, and so he is disabled, and so he's ridiculed and looked down upon for that. But he's a really fierce warrior. He's very competent. He's very proud, and he's just been forced into a really sometimes horrific situation or series of situations, and he's tasked by someone to take this spear to this place in order to save the kingdom, I think. I don't know. It's not linear storytelling. It's gotten more linear as we're going on, but there's some parts of like the writing that I really like, because we'll have the narrative, and then every once in a while there'll be, or not even once in a while, and then pretty frequently there will be a sentence or two in italics, and it's an interjection from somebody whose point of view we're not getting. So if they're talking about June and Kima are sailing down the river and talking about how they sailed past some fishermen, there'll be a sentence maybe in italics of what the fisherman's POV was of seeing this boat with these two men sail down the river. So I really like that component, but I don't know that I'm tracking super well with all the different interjections. I don't know if I really understand where we're going. And while I like the writing a lot, because I'm so disjointed, it's not a super enjoyable read for me, so I end up putting it off because it takes a lot of brain power for me to read this. I feel like I really need to pay attention, because if I get distracted, or if my mind wanders, then I have to go back and reread what my eyes went over, because like if you miss something, it's hard to know what's important and what is not. So yeah, so I don't know. It's not a glowing recommendation so far. But I'm like intrigued. Like, I want to know where we're going, what is happening. The cruelty of this family I find really hard to read right now. There's like a particular prince who is so cruel and awful, and every time I want to stop reading every time he's on the page, and unfortunately he's on the page a lot right now, and so that's a big struggle for me. But I'm hoping now that I'm just past the 50% mark, I'll move more quickly through these last 200 pages. Sometimes just getting to the 50% mark is the slowest part for me, and then once I've gotten to it feels like I have momentum. And I feel like the last half of books sometimes go faster for me than the first half of books go. I don't think this is going to be a 5-star the way The Vanished Birds was, though, and that makes me kind of sad, because it was definitely a 5-star prediction, even knowing that it was weird and confusing and a big brain book. But oh well. I wish I could tell you why literary sci-fi works for me, but literary fantasy does not. I wish I knew what the difference was. I'm giving this a 3. Listen, I know, but I think if you like literary fantasy, I think this is a great version of that. I think the writing is really lovely. I think the way Simon Jimenez weaves the story together is really interesting and could be really compelling and emotionally impactful. If this is a subgenre of fantasy that is in your wheelhouse, there is and maybe this is where I struggle. I feel like there is a level of remove in literary fantasy between the reader and the characters. And while there is a lot of action and stuff happening to these people, and a lot of really devastating things occur, there's a lot of cruelty, there's a lot of heartbreak, there's not a lot of joy. And I do tend to lean towards campy fantasy. That is really like my sweet spot, my favorite, like that. Those are fantasy books that I rate highly. So it could be that I just like the camp. And when I don't have the camp, I don't have as much fun. And when I don't have fun in fantasy, it's not going to be a favorite. So while I can recognize like the artistry and the craft in this book, it's not going to be a favorite, which is like so devastating because The Vanished Birds is like one of my favorite science fiction books. But again, like literary sci-fi, for whatever reason, is attainable for me in a way that literary fantasy isn't. I just realized that my nails match this book pretty perfectly. Anyways, so yes, so I finished it. There were dreams in it. They're not magical dreams, but there are dreams, and there's a lot of people. So I'm gonna go. So I'm not the weirdo talking to my phone. And I'll update once I'm halfway through Ella Enchanted. I did not give you a halfway through update because Ella Enchanted is so short and such a fast read. Doing a halfway update felt a little bit silly. So I have finished Ella Enchanted, and oh my goodness, I don't think I've reread this since I was a teenager. I beforehand would have sworn up and down that I have reread this as an adult with a fully developed frontal lobe, but I don't think I have. So this was delightful. Of course, nothing was surprising. I remembered everything because I reread this so extensively in my teenage years. But if you have not consumed this book, and I will also add, I have not watched the movie because I was such a book purist when the movie came out, and I could tell from the trailer that it was going to be wildly different, and I wasn't interested in consuming the story in a different way. So I've never seen the movie. I don't have anything to speak to on how, like, I know they are different. I don't know exactly how they are different. My sense from the trailers that the movie is sillier and this is darker. But as far as synopses go, Ella Enchanted is a Cinderella retelling. And we're following Ella, who lives with her mother and their cook, Mandy, and her father is a merchant and he travels all the time. So Ella is raised by primarily those two women and has like a really delightful childhood. However, when she was born, a fairy named Lucinda came and gave what she thought was going to be a gift to Ella, and it was the gift of obedience. Unfortunately, it's not the great gift Lucinda thought it was going to be. And being made obedient means that Ella has to do whatever somebody tells her to do. If it's a direct order, Ella has to do it. She makes up all these games to try to delay her following through on the actions, but every minute she puts it off, she becomes sick, dizzy, nauseous. Her body forces her to do what she's been told to do. And her mom and Mandy do a pretty good job of protecting her, but then her mom dies and her father comes back home, and the story goes from there. And this is at turns lovely and scary and kind of dark. And lovely because Ella, shortly after her mother's death, meets the Prince of the Kingdom, Char. And there's a really lovely romance in here between Ella and Char. And so you have that loveliness as Ella just like, it's so, this book is so fraught with tension because every moment Ella is around other humans, like it could go sideways so quickly, and most of the time it does go sideways. But Ella is really smart and she's funny and she's kind, and she is such an easy protagonist to root for and to wish good things for. I love how this book ends and how Gail, Carson, Levine wraps everything up. I love her writing. This plot moves so quick. We do not have dead space in this book. It is just boom, 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 one thing after another. And that was also kind of the reason I did an update, because the chapters are so short and because you just move. You're constantly moving in this book. There is no like drawn out scenes. There was no lag. I never was like, oh my God, lady, get to the point. She just went through it. She just like, we clipped along at a really good pace, and before I knew it, the book was over. I am still giving it a 5-star. I don't know that it's an unbiased 5-star. There's a lot of nostalgia in with that. There were some things, or there are things that bothered me. Maybe not. I did really appreciate too that there was diverse representation in this book, especially for children's book that came out in '97. It's not overt representation, but not everyone is described as having white skin. So I appreciated that. And yeah, it's a good time. If you're looking for a very backlist children's book to read, I think Ella Enchanted holds up really well. And I would definitely read it again. And now I'm going to try and like gently bully one of my children into reading it, because I just think it's such a lovely book. And I really like the romance. I think I already said that, but like it's a very age-appropriate romance. Ella is very young. I think she turned 16 during the course of this book, and because it's like a medieval-based world, there is talk of Ella being married off to like try to improve their family finances. So it does have like that, but the romance between Ella and Char is very age-appropriate, but it's very sweet. It's very lovely. Oh, I remember, there was one thing that bugged me. This is so nitpicky. It's so nitpicky, I recognize that. But in this world, centaurs are kept as pets, but like they're not intelligent, so they can't understand language, and they're treated like horses, but they're centaurs. And I think horses are actually kind of smart. They can be stupid, but they are actually smart. So I don't know, the way the centaurs were talked about, and just picturing like somebody human-faced, like top half human, acting the way it was being described really weirded me out. But that is super nitpicky, super personal like thing that bugged me, and it probably wouldn't bug most people. But yeah, I am so glad I pivoted and read this instead, because it was so lovely. And I am going to be moving on to The Outside by Ada Hoffman next, and I'm really excited for that one. It's been on my TBR for a very, very long time, and I have 5-star feels for that one. So fingers crossed my intuition is correct and that it's going to be the good time I envision. The dishwasher is running, so my apologies if that is loud. Hopefully I'll be able to like toggle the audio a little bit so that it's not too interruptive. But I am 55% of the way through The Outside, so I'm going to attempt to tell you about it, but no promises that this will make any sense, because I don't even know if I fully understand what exactly is happening in this book. So this is science fiction set sometime in the future. Humans have populated so many planets, multiple planets, and there are AI gods in this world. And there's multiple of them. And it is very much giving like Greek god vibes, where there's a lot of them. They all have different rules. Their followers believe different things, but they also have relationships with each other as well as relationships with their followers. And they punish their followers if they behave in a heretical fashion, which is a big thing in this book, is humans practicing heresy and what the consequences are of those actions. But I'll rewind, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Our main character is Ysera, and Ysera is really young, like early 20s, and she's a prodigy, like a child genius, and she's living on this space station, and they're about to launch their first, like the first space station using human technology instead of god technology, and it's a big deal. And Ysera has designed it and has built it. She's in charge of the project, much to a lot of people's chagrin because she looks so young. And so they launch is it an energy drive? Yeah. And it's going to be like the future of humanity. And then there's a disaster. And it kind of catapults Ysera into the orbit of a god named Nemesis, who is a very vengeful god, and yeah, and so there's a lot going on. There is some cosmic horror. It hasn't been a big part of the story yet, so I don't know if it will get bigger. It feels very twisty. It's very confusing, and well, not very confusing. It is confusing in certain spots, just following the tech, and the outside, like the title, refers to this thing that I don't even know if I can explain it, because I don't even know that if I understand it. To the best of my knowledge, man, and if you've read this book and you can describe this better, like, yell at me. The outside is a reaction to human mathematics versus God mathematics, and it usually drives humans insane eventually, like wears down their mental stability until they are medically insane. And Ysera is unique because they find she can interact with the outside without it. I mean, it adversely affects her, but not to the same degree. God, I hope I explained that. Anyways, despite the twisty nature of this plot and my difficulty in describing it, I really like Ada Hoffman's writing. I really like Ysera. Though with that said, she is so young that there have been a couple times where she's just kind of irritated me because she is so young, but like the things she is doing make sense for her age. And she is autistic, which is why I picked this up, because this again is for the character with the disability square on the bingo board. And I wasn't sure how big of a deal Ysera's autism was going to be in this book, but it is a main point. It is brought up multiple times, either from Ysera in how she interacts with the world and the things that she needs to be taken care of in the world, or by other people using it to be ableist and to try to devalue Ysera. So it is a big plot point. It comes up a lot, which I think is really cool, because I feel like usually with adult books, if a main character is autistic, we don't get it a lot. I feel like YA middle grade books are better about that representation as far as my reading experience goes. So, but I am liking Ada Hoffman's writing a lot, and I think this is a really interesting concept. I have no idea if this is going to wrap up by the end, because I think this is a series. I don't think this is a standalone. I think there's more books after this. And I feel like this plot is real complex with just under 200 pages left to go. So we shall see. We shall see. It is not the 5 I was anticipating at the beginning. That could change. It could bump up depending on like what kind of reveals we have, if there's any twists, like what the heck happens in this last little bit. I would say it's probably in the 4-star range at this point, but I'm really enjoying it, and I think it's really well done, and I'm excited to see how it ends. Alright, I am so disappointed to tell you that I did not enjoy the last half of this book the way I enjoyed the first half of this book. So I felt we had a really strong start with the setup and introducing all the characters and this world and the AI gods, and like what does it mean when religion and science are like one and the same. I thought that was also interesting. But then in the last half, the pacing got kind of weird, and I felt like we lost the sense of urgency occasionally, which was bizarre because the stakes were so high. I also felt like Ysera did a couple things that felt pretty out of character for what had been established for her in the beginning half. So unfortunately, I'm giving it like a 3.5, which is a bummer because I thought this could be a 5-star. I also wish there had been more of the cosmic horror elements. There wasn't really cosmic horror. Like, I don't know, this person who says it's a mix of cosmic horror and space opera. I could see the argument for a space opera. There's not enough cosmic horror to say that this is a cosmic horror. Just a little bit, barely any. Which is too bad, because when it was there, it was cool, I think I would have liked it more if it had been more prevalent. So sad that this wasn't the new all-time favorite that I was anticipating, because I've had this on my TBR for so long and set such high hopes. But fortunately with our fantasy bingo board, I don't actually have to like the books that are fulfilling. It's not like a bingo of 5-star reads. Oh my gosh, could you imagine? I would never complete the bingo board if I had to have a 5-star for each square. Or maybe I would eventually, but it would definitely take me more than a year. Anyways, that's done. I don't think I have a whole lot more to say about it other than what I already said. I think that kind of, yeah. I mean, I could talk more, but I think I'd just be belaboring the point, and you got it. So I am moving on to the last book in this video, which is going to be Ardent Violet, and I don't remember what the rest of the title is, but it's Ardent Violet, and I'm really excited to get into that because I absolutely adore Alex White. I think that one, if not a 5-star, it'll be pretty close. I have yet to read an Alex White book that I don't absolutely enjoy, and I really loved book 1 in that series, and I just have such high hopes. However, I do not listen to this series on audio because, at least for the first one, the narrator could not do accents to save their life. It's very much like an international cast, and so there are a lot of accents, and it's painful when they are all done poorly. So I am going to be reading this book just with my eyeballs. It's over 400 pages. It's March 21st. The 2024 challenge for the bingo board ends March 31st. I am nervous I am not going to finish it in time because I apparently am a much slower reader this year than I was last year. So wish me luck. I am nervous, but I think if I exert some discipline, I can get it done. I am 50%-ish of the way through Ardent Violet and the Infinite Eye by Alex White. And I did not reread August Kitco. That might be a mistake, but so far it hasn't been too bad. I think I'm okay. So this is book 2 in the Star Metal Symphony. Book 1 is August Kitco and the Mechas from Space. And in book 1, we are on Earth in the future. World looks very different. Other planets have been colonized, that kind of different. And the book opens with this robot mech coming down and attacking Monaco. And August is a jazz pianist, and he gets wrapped up into being part of a team called the Vanguards, which are this group of mechs who want to protect Earth and humanity from these evil mechs, or mechs that are intent, maybe not evil, but like are intent on attacking humanity and also other planets, because there are other alien species in this series. And so August Kitco is our main character, and then a main secondary character in the first book is Ardent Violet, who is like a non-binary pop star, and August and Ardent have a romance in book 1. So that is almost as big of a plot as what's going on with the mechs and the robots and the battle to survive Earth, and it ends on a and there's like, is it end on a cliffhanger? I can't even remember what the ending of August Kitco is. Anyways, we're continuing on in Ardent Violet, and Ardent Violet picks up pretty closely after August Kitco has ended. Earth is not saved. Humanity is not saved. Other species on different planets are not saved, and the Infinite Eye is a mech who was probably in book 1 and I think was like the main bad in book 1, but I have zero memory of it, so that's where I feel like maybe a reread would have been fine, but I didn't. And I feel like even though this says Ardent Violet's name on the cover, we are very much splitting time between August and Ardent, which is fine because Ardent can be a lot. And I have a lot more fondness and affection for August, so I'm glad that it is equally shared between August and Ardent. I always really love Alex White's writing. And like, yes, this book is kind of chunky, but August White's writing is so easy to read that they tend to go pretty quick because I think they just do such a good job of writing characters and interaction, and the dialogue is always good. I love how Alex White writes space battles. Like, they're so fun. They make so much sense to me in an Alex White book. I love how music is interwoven into this series, though the music has been a lesser component in book 2 than it was in book 1. I really felt like August's relationship to music and to piano playing really anchored him in book 1, and I feel like it hasn't been in this one as much, but it would also make sense because I feel like August is really floundering with where he is, what he's been asked to do, what he has agreed to do, and how he's being asked to do it, or not even being asked, how he's being told to do it, and where his morals and his ethics are butting up against a bigger organization's priorities. So I'm really digging it. I think it's good. I don't know that I love it as much as the first book. I remember loving the first book. I'll have to look up on Storygraph and see what I gave book 1. I don't know if it was a full 5 or if it was a 4.5. And this one, while I'm having a really good time and I'm really entertained, I'm also pretty distracted while I'm reading it. But I think that says more about me and my brain and just what my life is like as I am reading this book, and what my reading space, like what my house is like while I'm trying to read this book. So I have a lot of distractions. I'm being pulled out of the book a lot, which is not ideal, but because it's Alex White, it's so easy to slide in and out of their books. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm just double checking Alex White's pronouns because I'm pretty sure it's they, them. Yeah. So that's how it's going. I am excited to see how this ends. I think there's supposed to be at least one more book in this series, so I imagine this will end on another pretty big cliffhanger, because that's how the other series that I've read by them went. But yeah, if you like space opera, if you like fast-paced, a lot of action, but also like really lovely characters who are easy to root for. And this one doesn't have so much of like a ragtag found family as the Salvager series does, but there's also time. We could get there because I do really like a lot of the other characters, and I love their aliens in this book. It's so creative, which is what I want if I'm going to read a book with aliens. I'm a little sad that it's over. It was such a fun time. Now, I did not end up loving this at the same level that I loved August Kitco. I gave August Kitco a 4.75, and I think I'm gonna give Ardent Violet a 4.25 because a couple reasons. It did feel a little long. Not a lot, but it felt a little long. I also felt like there were a couple of interactions between Ardent and August that felt a little repetitive. Like, we've had these conversations before. So like those are like, yeah, very minor quibbles. I think if you are looking for a fast-paced space opera with a ton of action, like, I don't want to compare every book with mechs in it to Pacific Rim, but I think if you want like a Pacific Rim style of story, but like super queer and also more on the lighthearted side, I think Alex White weaves humor into their stories so effortlessly, and even when things are really dire, there's still like a lightheartedness to it. I don't really fear for the characters in Alex White books in the same way that maybe I would fear for them in another author's books. I think because of the lightheartedness and the optimism of these books. Now, that being said, it's not like Alex White is not precious about their darlings. Like, characters do die, and there are very like big epic battles with really heavy stakes, but I just love the creativity in this one as far as the alien creatures go and the world, and I really loved the ending. The final battle was so fun and exciting and a little stressful and surprising, and I found the ending really surprising as well. And so I'm really curious to what's going to happen in the third book, which I'm assuming will be the last book in this series, because I think Alex White primarily does trilogies, but it could be wrong. There could be more. But yeah, this was super fun. And now that this is done, we are done with this project, and I have blacked out my Reddit fantasy bingo board for 2024 with like barely a week to spare. Next time, I'm not going to leave it down to the wire like this. No, 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 no. But just to recap, so I read The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez to fulfill a book with dreams prompt. I reread Ella Enchanted by Gail, Carson, Levine to fulfill the book published in the 1990s prompt. The Outside by Ada Hoffman fulfilled the character with a disability prompt. And then, of course, Ardent, Violet, and the Infinite Eye by Alex White fulfilled the space opera prompt. So if you have made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for spending your precious time with me and following me along on this journey as I tried to fulfill this board. I will link part 1 down below if you haven't caught that and you want to see what I read in that video. I'll also link the video where I went over the bingo board if you want to see what I read for the other prompts if you've missed it. And if you want to leave an emoji to let me know that you made it to the end of this video, let's do some sort of water emoji for The Spear Cuts Through Water. And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll talk to y'all in the next one. Bye!